My name is Ronnie Lopez, and this is Underrated Power Training Q&A. What's up, guys? So we have a question from Chris. He says, I work out 6 days a week and work on my game 5 days a week. I am a line drive hard hitter, but I want more power in my swing to hit the long ball. Okay, so setting aside your hitting mechanics, I have a great answer to improve your exit velocity. We have a 4-step process. Let's get started and look at that right now. So part 1 is training in the optimal environment. We need to understand what you're doing. In baseball, we swing a 32, maybe 33, 34 ounce bat at a high velocity against low resistance. So we need to put yourself training in those environments. Obviously, rotational velocity is a premium and you need to be addressing that. We also need to be training in the 3 common planes of motion. That's the transverse, sagittal, and frontal. We're gonna talk about that. I'm gonna show you examples. That is gonna be important because all 3 are involved in your actual swing. With that said, we need to put a lot of priority in the transverse place, the rotational plane. And again, we're gonna show you exercises to do just that. I love training the transverse plane using medicine balls, especially when we talk about developing exit velocity, hitting the ball farther. Now, before we get into the actual medicine ball work, I love going through some quote-unquote dry hacks to set the right movement pattern up, which is basically gonna mimic your actual swing. All right, the first exercise I'm going to recommend is a seated med ball shot put. You're going to angle a bench or a box or a chair at a 45-degree angle. And what you're gonna do is you're going to be in a somewhat open stance is going to allow you to better finish and follow through. Now, being in a seated position is gonna remove your lower half from providing additional force in the shot put. This is going to isolate the upper body and it's going to allow you to better feel this hip-shoulder dissociation, which is only going to help you improve power development from the upper body. Hitter shot put, when it comes to developing speed in the transverse plane as a baseball hitter, it really doesn't get any better than this exercise right here. It puts you in the right and in a similar movement pattern as you take in an actual swing. You want to focus on developing most of your force through your lower half. So a great tip is to remember to keep your hands relaxed. Your hands finish the exercise, not necessarily start it. Focus on generating force through your lower half, your hips, and your back foot, and only finishing with your hands at the very end. All right, so now we're gonna address the frontal plane, which is side to side, moving laterally. When you think about a hitter, you're gonna stride, and being able to manage that ground contact force is gonna allow you to be a stronger, more explosive hitter. So this exercise has you on a box, a low box, a few inches off the ground. What you're gonna do is you're gonna step off the box, and as soon as your foot hits the ground, you're gonna push off, aggressively, explosively back onto the box. Now, this is gonna teach you how to manage that ground force, and this is only gonna help you in the batter's box. So again, you don't wanna yield, you don't wanna let the knee continue to bend and travel as you land. As soon as your foot hits the ground, you're gonna push off, and you're gonna repeat on each side. This is a great way to develop that ground contact management. So the third plane is the sagittal plane, essentially up and down. Now, this exercise is called a landmine thruster, and the reason I enjoy and believe this is a great exercise is because it does 2 good things. 1, it's safe. 2, it does a good job of training you to finish with your hands. And that's what we wanna do when we're actually taking swings. You wanna finish with your hands. Only after we incorporate and use our lower half should we rely on our hands. So what you wanna do, you wanna make sure that you go through a full squat and accelerate out of the bottom, and only at the end do the hands take over. So speed is the priority here. Make sure you don't add too much weight, only add as much weight as you can accelerate and go from there. So part 2 is improving the tendomuscular system. The reason why we want to do that is there's an involuntary process that our body possesses. It's the ability to use a stretch shortening cycle. A good way to think about it is think of a rubber band. If we stretch a rubber band and let it go, that snap is going to be faster, is going to be more effective, is going to be snappier. Now, if we stretch the rubber band even further, we're going to have an even better snap. That's important because when we swing, we have the ability to use that stretch shortening cycle. So if we can maximize that, that's gonna improve our swing velocity. So another way to think about it is a jump. If you were to jump from a quarter squat position, you're gonna get so high. Now, if you were able to use a counter movement, if you were to squat quickly and then go immediately into your jump, you're gonna be able to use that involuntary system that your body has to generate even greater force on the actual jump. And so that's what we're trying to do here.
So again, the stretch shortening cycle, the ability to generate force from a counter movement. So we're gonna use a medicine ball here. You're gonna get in a straddle position, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna basically toss the ball up as high as you can. Now gravity is gonna create some counter movement, some counter energy that you are going to use. You're gonna store it and use it to your advantage. So the key here is to make sure you immediately reverse and throw the ball back up, and that's how you're gonna use the stored energy. Being able to do exercises like this, getting really good at it, is going to train your body to make good use of the stretch shortening cycle. And this exercise is great for the upper body, specifically your hands. All right, bonus exercise time. So now we're going to address the fascia. The fascia is a long web of tissue that connects your body as a whole. This is found throughout, and as an athlete, having healthy fascia is going to allow you to be a more explosive athlete. And so this is one awesome exercise that I found. It's actually great for a warm-up. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna lay on the ground, you're gonna take one hand, reach across your body, and not force the rotation, the rollover. You're just gonna allow your body to naturally follow the lead of that arm. And so what this is doing is going to train your fascial network to basically work together. And again, this is an involuntary process. This is not something that basically gets trained when you're doing strength training or lifts, but it's going to benefit you as a rotational athlete to use some of those involuntary processes in your body to be a better, more explosive athlete.
So part 3 is training max strength. So why that's important is we're going to improve motor unit recruitment. When you think about working out, we often train at about 80%, 70% of our effort. And so that is going to allow us not to use all of our body in that exercise. What I want you to do, and why training max strength is important, is because it essentially uses every single fiber of our body to make the lift, to make the rep. And so that is important because when we swing, I want you to be able to use your entire body into that swing, to aid the swing. And so that's why training at max strength at 100% is beneficial to improving your exit velocity.
For our max effort lifts, we're going to squat and deadlift. In the squat, you want to make sure that the bar is in the right spot. You don't want to have it on your neck. You want to make sure you have it across your shoulders or that line that connects them. From there, your feet are set firmly on the ground. You don't want to be too far on your heels, too far on your toes. You also want to make sure that you brace and you stay in control the entire time. Yes, we're looking for a max effort lift, but we want to stay within ourselves. You do not want to risk getting hurt. For the deadlift, you want to make sure that the bar stays close to your body. You don't want it to drift away from you. You also don't want to yank the bar off the ground. That puts a lot of stress and could risk hurting your shoulders. It's common when you go heavy that you want to yank it because it feels like a strong position or something powerful. But you want to get rid of the slack from the bar, okay? You want to get rid of the slack starting from the floor. You want to press through your feet, driving through the ground, and lock out at the top with your hips.
So part 4 is improving mobility. Now I know that might not sound exciting, but guess what? If you're trying to hit the ball far, if you want to have as much snap and velocity, having the right mobility is going to help you do just that. Think of a rubber band. If we pull it out so far, the snap isn't going to be as effective. The more I stretch it out, the faster the snap we're gonna have. Same thing with our body. Again, our body has elastic properties. We can stretch, and so we need to improve that. As a hitter, we need to improve thoracic mobility. We need to improve lat mobility, pec mobility, shoulder mobility, hip mobility. We need to make sure we address all those things, so let's get into some exercises that does just that.
As a rotational athlete, it doesn't get more important than this. Your upper spine's mobility allows you to rotate, and this is going to allow you to generate force and power. So in this exercise, you want to take a seat. You want to make sure your knees are about hip height when you take a seat, and you want to make sure you put something between your legs so you're not compensating and using your lower half. I'm using this stick here on my upper shoulders to make sure that I'm not cheating, rotating one side more than the other. From here, I'm going to turn to one side, swiveling around my spine, making sure I stay tall. You can film yourself from the front and look how far you're rotating in each direction so you can have a good idea of your mobility. You want to do about 5 reps on each side, and hopefully over time, your dedication will show you an improvement in the thoracic rotation you have. Another piece of this mobility puzzle are your lats. If your lats are too tight, you're gonna have a harder time creating separation as you bring your hands back when you take your stride. It also impacts your throwing, so yeah, lats are important. To do this, you take a band, you anchor it on a high position, so using a rack is common. You're gonna take a step back on the same side and you're gonna rotate your palms up. In this position, you wanna bring your head in front of your shoulders and look for a good long stretch from your elbow all the way down to your hips. You might even feel it in front of your hips, in your psoas, and maybe even your quads. You wanna hold this stretch for about a minute, maybe even longer, because that's what's gonna actually drive change. You wanna switch sides, and over time, you're gonna start to see more range of motion, and this is gonna impact your hitting. The last mobility drill I'm gonna present to you is gonna address the QL, and we're also gonna go over the pancake stretch. The QL is a muscle that runs along your back, and if that's tight, it's been proven to reduce your mobility, your rotation. So you wanna make sure that you address this and you get better at this particular stretch. So you're gonna get in a seated straddle and you're going to side bend. One hand is going to reach directly out in front, the other one's going to reach across and towards your toes. Over time, if you do a good job again, you're gonna see some improvement in this side bend. Now, the last one is a pancake stretch. You're simply gonna stay in that straddle, but you're gonna fold over. You're gonna reach out directly in front, slowly inching your fingers away from you. Now, the goal is to get as close to the floor as possible, getting that nose down to the ground. But not only are you going to improve on your thoracic rotation, but you're also addressing some hamstrings and some growing. And as a result, you're gonna be a more mobile and more explosive athlete.
Hey, get your training questions answered for free. Just click the link in the bio.